Hello everyone, I am Amit. I am a data engineer at Google and I am an instructor of this course Google Cloud Platform. So today's session we will going to see what is Kubernetes Engine and Google GKE and why do we use that. So let's start. As you can see that this Google Cloud Computing provides you a lot of services, storage and compute engine, app engine, like notebooks, VPC, networking, many more services are there. And GKE, that is your Kubernetes engine, is one of that service. So let's see that why do we use this GKE. First of all, before starting our lab, let me give you a small introduction on the GKE so that at least you should have a depth understanding of a GKE. What is GKE? That is Google Kubernetes engine and what are the parts of that. So let's start it. So you can see this. If you wanted to go more details, you can follow this like blogs of to read what is Kubernetes engine. And if you see if you want to go through some genuine resources, then you can just type on the tab, open the any tab and search it there, Google GKE document. So you will get a document that is provided by the Google on their website. So just type it just select that option, first one. So as you can see, when you select it, these options open. Here you will get everything, means what is Kubernetes, like different APIs. So basically the Kubernetes is used to deploy, to automate your deployment and to make your software deployment and running and scaling completely in automation way. It means that we don't have to manage it manually. Kubernetes engine will help you to deploy your end-to-end applications and it will help you to manage your master node and data node. It means that how you can application, you can manage it, how you can maintain the communication that is going on between the different applications that you are working with. So if you see it, you can see the several links here. Just click on that quick start. So you will get an idea about it, what is Kubernetes engine, and we're going to see the lab also. So these are the complete GKE part, quick start, like how you can do that. And if you wanted to see about this, what actually the Kubernetes is, so you can see this. So in Google Cloud Platform, we say this GKE like a short form for this Google Kubernetes Engine, Google Kubernetes Engine GKE, and it is also known as K8s. It's an open source system that is used for automating your deployment of an application as well as scaling of the resources that you need it to run your application successfully. And it is basically a containerized application, containerized just like a Docker that we use it. So on that container, we deploy our application and we run them successfully. So this is the document that is provided by the Kubernetes on their website, which is an open source, and you can see it like they have given the complete descriptions on their website. What is Kubernetes and what are the nodes, master node. So it's like, as I said you, it is an open source for automating your deployment and rescaling your resources. So let's start about it. I wanted to show you first of all like what the descriptions about the Kubernetes. What are the component that involves in a Kubernetes? So first of all, as I said you, K8 cluster. K8 cluster is one of the that Kubernetes having a cluster. In that cluster, we have a several component that is your master and several data nodes. So ultimately in Kubernetes, we are managing the communication between your master node and data node. Master node is like which is managing the communications from the master node, which is managing the applications, and it is distributing the tasks to the several data nodes so that the data can be distributed and the application can run faster. You don't have to be constant, and there will be no constant of a memory or like a kind of a legacy in your application that you are running. So that's the reason that this K8 cluster, we are just creating a cluster which is in a simple word. If I say you, this cluster is like a big system or a network where you several systems are connected together, where you are running your application by dividing the task, and the master node are your main node who is responsible for distributing the task between the several nodes. As you can see on my screen, this master node. So K8 cluster, basically this is a develop this Google GKE was introduced and available in the Google Cloud platform, and it was written in a Golang language, and it is also known as K8s. So here we have a master node and data node. As I already given you the description about the master node, in this master node, we are just connecting to the several data node with this API, the REST API, and making this communication successful. So there is like a terms like API server, cluster store, scheduler who is scheduling the jobs or pods. I will going to explain you what is pod and node everything. Controller who is going to controlling the cluster in their desired state, like when they are running the applications, like managing the garbage collections, releasing the memory, releasing the resources and the node. So master node is actually a kind of a, you can say, the brain of your cluster, or you can say the main node, a server node you can think it, which is managing the task, whose work is just like a boss who can distributing the task between the nodes. Node will complete the task and respond to the master node back. And there are some of the terms API server, cluster store, which is calling the REST API. API is just a code that we write down, our application programming interface, so that the communication can be happen between the nodes successfully. So this is the structure of that in the master node, how these components are connected together. And kubectl, kubectl, kubectl is a command that we use it to run this Kubernetes on the command prompt to connect to the workstations. And as I said you, the node, as I said you, the node in like node is your the agent that are actually doing the jobs. They will going to get a response from the master node, and they will perform the job in a distributed fashion. So there are many clusters are there and in many clusters we have a multiple data node or the master node. If any of the node fail, the task will be assigned to the colleague node, and the master node decide to whom the task should be assigned so that he can run it. It is like a containerized applications where it's like a container, just like as I said, you Docker, if you are familiar with the Docker, so it's like a container, Docker container where you everything you put up there and make it ready to use by the end customer. And kube proxy is for connecting those several nodes with the help of to the pods and balancing the load. So ultimately, why do we have a multiple node? So that when you run an application or task, the load can be balanced among them. So it should not be burden on any node. You can anytime stop and start those containers based on your requirement. That is the reason we call it automating. Means suppose for example in 24-hour days, you work from morning 6 to evening 6, 12 hour and 12 hour, then after that you can stop the container or cluster so that it will stop working. There are a few more components. What is pod? As I said, it's a platform, it's an environment where you deploy the container. So in the pod, you can deploy various container, various applications that will going to run on the Google Kubernetes Engine. And with the help of multiple container, they communicate and they can run. Container, it means that you have put every software component, APIs, and everything on the same component, and you bring them together inside the pod. So it is easy for Kubernetes to scale the features, scale the resources that you need it to run any applications. So this is the general idea I'm giving it. We will see what the lab also today. And these are the different services that our pod they do with the help of single IP. Once you create a cluster, I'm going to show you the lab. Once you create a cluster, that IP you can use it to search on the tab, just write down the IP so you can connect to that cluster. In that cluster, you can create multiple pod, multiple having a master node, data node, what configuration you need, what is reason and zone, you all can decide it. So this service is actually means like what that pod will going to do with different IP, how they will going to distribute the load and act as a single source for the interaction with the pod and do the task. Services is just like what operations your container will going to do. Services like reading from some file, running the applications based on that IP address. So inside the cluster, there various services are there with that is called an IP address to which you are connecting it. So this is the about it. And the deployment, the YAML file, finally we deploy it in a Kubernetes container so that it will make automation of our software, scaling of the resources. So this YAML file and JSON manifest is nothing having a like a configuration detail, like a release version detail, so that when you deploy it on a cloud, it will be easy for the cloud to understand in which version or like a configuration your application was developed. That will be deployed with the help of REST API server, and that pod will going to hold that container, and we can work on that. So the detailed architecture of the Kubernetes is like this. With the help of REST API, you can connect to this master node and data node. This API server is actually means you are going to write down the API, and with that API, as I said you, when you want to communicate between two processes or two software, for example, two applications are running. For example, let me give you an idea. This is one application, and this is one application. This is for like creating the jobs, or like you can say, just think it like this is for creating the process or a software, and they are connecting with the deployment one application where you are going to deploy it. So just I'm giving the naming also. This is your software that you wanted to deploy, and you will going to connect it with the Google Cloud, right? So that this software can deploy it. So you need some medium who will going to communicate in between them. That medium is called as an API. This API will help the communication between this successful. So with the help of this API, you can perform a communication between them, and with the help of this communication, you can communicate between these two different nodes, two different software. This is a Google Cloud platform, and there's some software that you want to deploy it. So this API will be helpful in doing communication successful, and they can like execute without any kind of a delay or legacy. So API is application programming interface, which we write down and to make the communication between two different processes. So Kubernetes is responsible for that. Means it will going to, with the help of API, you will connect to this cluster, and this all detail, whatever I explain you, the pod, containers, services, this will all comes under the Kubernetes, and that will is responsible for making the deployment. Deployment means when your application is available to the end user. So deployment means you are deploying this application on the Google Cloud so that the end user or the company, they can use that project. So let me rub this and come to our lab part. In the lab part, I will going to explain you how you can create a cluster. So you can see here, this is the Google Cloud platform. In this Google Cloud platform, you can log in it first, and once you have a registered account, or if you're working with a free tier account, just click on this, the project that you wanted to create. For this Kubernetes, let me create the new project. How you can create a project? Click on this my first project. Then you can see I created a multiple project, data flow, project deployment. Let me create a new project here. You can give any name here. Let me give a name like so here I'm giving the Kubernetes project. I'm creating this demo project. You can give any name based on your requirement. And once you give it, the name will not be changed. So be remember that name should be, you can give a name that should be unique. And then location, you can either browse it. This is a parent organization folder, means the parent folder that will going to manage all the projects. So once you click on this create project, the project will be created. As I have a multiple project here, so I will not going to create an extra project, but when you will going to start, just start it with the fresh. You can start create this project, and then you can do it in a Kubernetes. So I'm just selecting this my first project itself. Now just click on this, and for this Kubernetes, just go to this, scroll down. You can see this Kubernetes engine, right? And today we're going to see how we can create a cluster. Cluster means a group of a node, that is master node and data node, which will going to communicate and make your task run successfully. So here I'm just clicking on this cluster. Once you click on this cluster, just wait for a few seconds. So you can see such kind of screen will appear, and then once you see this screen, you can see some of the descriptions are there. Kubernetes cluster and a container package, an application so that it can deploy your application successfully on the cloud, and so that you can rescale applications and all. If you wanted to learn more, you can just click on it, and you can go through the theory. If you are doing first time, then I will prefer you just whatever the resources they are giving you, just go through it so that you can get an idea. Whatever I open it here, same thing here. You can do the GKE free also, means if you wanted to do the lab, just click on this, and you can do the lab also. And let's see that. So I wanted to create a cluster, so I click on this create cluster. Now it will give you two options. First one is GKE standard, where you can configure and manage a node, which is the standard one, where you use for suppose company works and all. And there is an autopilot, which is called a mini configuration, means a minimal configuration. Suppose if you want to do project for learning purpose and all, then you can go through this. Both are like different features are given by your Google Cloud. And if you wanted to compare this cluster, then you can right click and just click on this, and you can check it. What are this configuration between them? So in the standard one, you can rescale it, but in this autopilot mode, there is an automatic scaling is there. It means that is done by your cloud itself. Automatic one based on the requirement, and but here you can configure scaling based on your requirement. Here it is done by your cloud. Node, you can manage and configure the node, how much node you want, but here Google will manage it. So here in autopilot, as I said, minimal configuration. So here the dependency is on the cloud, but on the standard node, the dependency is not there. You can configure based on the requirement, based on the project. That's the reason I said you that for the project, for a company project, we use standard mode. And if you wanted to learn, if you wanted to do for learning purpose, or if you wanted to do for project for your personal use, you can go for this. Another thing is that you can configure all options. There is no restriction in that. But in autopilot, there are some option will be disabled for you or not available for you. Here in billing, pay per pod means the environment, the number of container that you are using based on the number of pod you created, where you deploy it. Is it based on that you pay? But here pay per node. The node means your virtual machine where you deploy your application, virtual machine where you run your application, the system, based on the system configuration you do that. So this is a small difference that I've shown you. Based on your requirement, you can select it what option you want. So let's start creating the cluster. Click on the standard one. I will going to show you the standard one. Here you can give any name. So I'm giving cluster one. So here you can see that I have given the name. This name also you can try it. What kind of name you should give it? You can refer this question mark so you can get an idea what kind of IntelliPad project you can name. You can give it there. You can give any name based on your requirement. Then what zone, whether you want to deploy in a region or zone you wanted to select. So you can select it. I'm selecting the by default zone. You can also change it. US Central 1C is the most widely used zone. You can means in that zone you can use any one of that. And if you wanted to select reason, then also you can select the reason. So based on the requirement, you can change it. So as it's by default configuration, I'm selecting here. And then you can check it here if you wanted to specify default node location. So default is US Central, so I've used that. If you wanted to change, you can select this also, but I'm selecting the default one. And you can select the reason also. As I said, you, if you want, you can select the reason, and based on that you can decide it. So once you are done with this, the next option is what kind of control plane version you want. Control plane version means what kind of version you want for your cluster, whether you wanted to upgrade the cluster in the future, what kind of cluster you want. So I want the release channel. Release channel is like a there are two kind of things are there. This also you can check it. Release version means, release channel means where you wanted to upgrade it, and static ones means that will be direct management of the directly managed by your cluster. So there you, if you wanted to explore more, you can just click on this learn more and you can find it out from there. There are two things are there in that option, release more and static one. Release one, why do we use that? So that we can change it, upgrade it in a future after a few months or like that. It can be easily changeable. Static means that will be not changeable, like it is a stable one, but I want to be version can be changed based on my requirement. So I taken regular channel. This is my version by default. It is selecting based on my uh, configuration that I selected here. And now there are two ways. Either you can directly create it from here, or there is a way of command line. If you use a command line, you have to run this whole command, gcloud. You have to specify the project name here. The project name, let me close this. My project name is coming this one, right? But when we, it's giving an example that when you are going to run it through command prompt, here we are doing right now with UI, but when you do with the command prompt, so here you will going to run that. You are going to change the project name here, cluster name that you have given. Like if remember, I have given a cluster name IntelliPad demo project. So based on that, you can create it and you can run it in a cloud shell. So if you run it in a cloud shell, this will be open. So you can do in a both way. Either you can run it to the cloud shell, or you can do it with the create command also. Both you can do it. So let me show you how with the command also, what will appear when you click on that. It will take some time, and you can see this command. Once I press enter, it will run. But let me show you with the UI only. So I will, and this REST API. As I said you, this is one of the API version which will help you to create with the process, the software. So it will help you, assist you in doing communication between the process so that it can run successfully in the cluster. So just click on this create button. As you click on this create button, it will give you notification once it is done. The cluster is created successfully. So it will give you the message. So just wait for some time. You can see here the cluster is on process. The number of node, this number of node, you might be thinking why it is coming 3. 3 is a by default number of node that comes at the initial cluster. We can change it based on the requirement, how many CPUs, and they will going to take by default like labels. And I have not given any specification now because this for learning purpose we are doing here. So as you can see, it is taking some time. Obviously, it will take some time. You can meanwhile auto refresh it so that you can check it whether it is created or what. Because we are creating the cluster, so it will take some time to create that. And once it is done successfully, you will get a notification also here. Meanwhile, let's check that what are the different kind of services we have. So here the workload means what are the tasks that you wanted to assign here. And so as you can see here, this workload will be going to be like what kind of work you wanted to assign here. Workload means the task that computing that you wanted to manage here inside the cluster. Different kind of services that I said you, right? Application that you wanted to deploy in this cluster. This all we can see it here. Storage, how many storage configuration you want. And if you wanted to migrate to another container, that also we can do it. But today we are just seeing about this, how we can deploy the cluster. Meanwhile, you keep on refresh it so that you can see like whether it is created or what, you will come to know. So see total memory, the default one was given to me was 12 GB and 6 was given total CPU. And I think it is done. You can see it is showing tick mark, and with that it is giving. So once your cluster is done successfully, you will get this message, and you can try with connecting also. Click on this and write dot and click on this connect. So you will going to connect it here. So in this command, in this way, you can connect to the cluster. You can run in the Google Cloud Shell. So I've shown you through UI. So let's done with this command prompt also. So I'm pressing enter here. You have to authorize it because you are running first time. So see this cluster is done successfully and it is connected also. So in this way, we have created the cluster. What is the Kubernetes engine? Like a Google GKE. What is this? Like a Kubernetes pod services and master node, data node. I've explained everything in this. Like if you have any question on this, then please uh, ask. I hope it is clear to you how to create a cluster. Based on this cluster, we can do further operation like deployment, creating the instances here, machines, virtual machine that I said here, master node, data node, you can create it here. So I hope it is clear to you. And in this command, you can see I have given that my project name. This is my project name, cluster name, and zone. You can see project name, and that is also like you have to give it in the command. So in the both way, you can create it. So I hope it is clear to everyone, and you got the concept of GKE. Thank you, everyone. We will connect in the next session with some more topic on Google Cloud.